National Finance, right? So that's the way it started. How many people you think know about this Petroleum Development Act, the one that essentially gave birth to Petronas? Do you think many people are aware of it? Because a lot of the people who created it are now very elderly.
Well, it's an interesting question. I mean, it depends on who you ask, really.
Yeah.
If you are interested in the history of the oil and gas sector and how Petronas came to be, I guess you would have some sort of background knowledge about it. But I guess to the people out there, the people on the street, so to speak, many might take Petronas for granted as in...
It's always been there,
exactly,
isn't it?
Yeah, it's always been there.
And then, so it was birthed when the May 13 riots came about, right? It was... the act was, anyway.
A few years after, yes.
So the country was in a state of chaos, emergency, that's why it came about?
I don't think it was a direct result of that. But what happened was that after the May 13 riots, the country was under the National Operations Council.
Yeah.
And there was a state of emergency. And the thing is, that state of emergency was not lifted until 2011 under the current Prime Minister. So when the act came about, it was passed under Parliament in 1974. And the legal argument is that, according to Sarawak, the passing of the act used some emergency powers. And now that emergency has been lifted, is the act still valid? That's the question that they're asking.
Well, that's the question Abang Johari is asking, isn't it? Abang Johari, who you spoke to, who's of course from Sarawak, he is, the essential argument is that at the moment Sarawak's only getting 5% of all the oil royalties, so to speak. And they're using this sort of legal argument to pressure that they should get more. They feel that they've had the bum end of the deal all this time.
Getting more is the unstated consequence if they manage to get what they want.
Legally.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's on one end. And the other end is the territorial boundaries is also in question. If you recall, the Territorial Sea Act 2012 was passed. So it limits the state's claim to 3 nautical miles from the coastline. But most of the oil is beyond that. And we have seen a disturbing precedent in Terengganu, I think, where the state was refused royalties because the oil was beyond that boundary.
All right.
So it has not come to that point for Sarawak, and I doubt it will. But I think that could be on the back of people's minds.
So the reason I suppose you question why he's bringing it up, because we're really close to elections, is that everybody always sees Sarawak as very much like a vote bank. Are they using that position as is leverage too strong a term, or they're like saying that, look, don't forget about us? Because I don't know. What do you think?
It's an interesting timing for sure.
Yeah.
And I guess we have to separate the fact that Sarawak is not going to vote for MPs. Sorry, not going to vote for Duns with seats this coming election. Because of course
Sarawak's state elections are a different time.
Exactly. But on the other hand, Sarawak has been lagging in terms of development for years. And for example, the Pan-Borneo Highway, they've been asking for decades. They're only getting it now. And notably, they're only getting it now as the political dynamics change.
Yeah.
The balance of power is changing on this side of the ocean.
So the thing is, you can argue that it's not just about oil, but what oil kind of represents, right?
Exactly.
Because Sarawak development, for all the riches and everything that they've gotten, they're still below, the sort of like per income capita, aren't they?
Exactly. And while the GDP is high, GDP per capita is high, you could attribute that to one, the population is still low.
Yes,
Two,
a lot of them move out, actually.
Exactly, and the export value of oil and gas, for example, palm oil, timber, is high. Meaning, if you look at GDP per capita, you get a high figure. But does it translate to the people on the street? Not necessarily, because the income per capita is among the lowest in Malaysia.
Yeah, and let's not mince words about what's at stake here. We're talking about half the gas reserves, untapped reserves, 1/3 of all the oil. So if they do sort of like push it and get more, what does that actually mean? Does that mean the rest of Peninsula gets less?
That's a very interesting scenario to ask about. And to be honest, like he said, let's leave it to the legal minds. But you have to also remember that Sarawak, because of the sheer landmass and the rich geology, it could hold most of our unexplored reserves that we don't know about yet. So there's also a big question there. What happens to that if Sarawak gets its way?
For more on the stories, pick up a copy of The Edge Weekly at all good newsstands.